I think being able to take information and make the best decision you can in a way that gives people confidence that, like, look, we don't know if this is necessarily the perfect decision. What we do know is we know X, Y, and Z, and we're going to put this together, commit to a path, and sort of get on board with that.
They have a mnemonic for that. There's like an acronym. It's
there's
like acquire, like acquire, assess, decide, act, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that is is sort of having muscle memory about decisions, right? To be able to say, look, we've got limited time to make this decision, and these are the things we know, and we're going to, everyone's going to get a chance to put in their input, and then we're going to, someone is going to make that decision, and we're going to move forward with it. Wow. And I think that was great muscle memory for startup land, which is all that, right?
It's all like that all the time. Yeah.
All that all the time. Like, we don't have all the information. We don't know if this is the right, but this is what we know, and this is what we're going to do in limited time.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Ignite podcast. Today, we're delighted to have Michael Ebel on the program. He's the CEO and founder of Atmosfy, Team Ignite portfolio company for years now. So thank you so much for being on the journey with us. He's he's been at Meta, PwC. He was an officer in the Air Force. Incredibly accomplished. Thanks so much for coming on the program.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Ryan. Excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to finally do this podcast. I know we've been talking about it for at least a year.
We have. It's been a while.
Would love to get an intro from you for the audience.
Yeah, founder CEO of Atmosfy. Before that, was a global project manager at Meta, working with ops machine learning there. Did the MBA thing across the way at Berkeley before that.
What year were you at Berkeley again?
15 to 17.
Okay, so you did like solidly overlap because Renato was 16, I was 18. So yeah,
that's right. Go Bears.
Go Bears.
Stint in management consulting before that for Pricewaterhouse, in kind of their private equity practice. And it was U.S. Air Force officer before that. I was a captain, a little bit of another life, but certainly lean on everything frequently. So.
That's amazing. Did you go to academy, or was that like a college ROTC thing? Or
yeah, no, I was enlisted before. I was a staff sergeant, and then kind of got my shot. I was a weapons team leader once upon a time, and then kind of got my shot to be, to become an officer, to become commissioned, and took it. And yeah, it was probably one of the better decisions that I ever made. Gave me a lot of structure, and a lot of lessons learned for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it's one of my big regrets is I got accepted into the Air Force Academy out of high school.
Oh, no way.
My grandparents wrote the state senator or maybe it was like even the governor of Washington State to get me in, and I don't want to go. And then I had another opportunity coming out of college. I really wanted to be a pilot growing up. And so I passed on it the first time. I was like, okay, maybe I'll take another run at it. And I took the ASTB, scored really high. That's the Navy aviation test. And they're like, all right, cool. Come on in. We'll pay off your student loans and you're going to be a pilot. And I was getting very serious with my then girlfriend, wife, who, Renata. And I was like, I don't think I want to be deployed like 6 to 12 months at a time. And so I backed out for a second time from the military. So it's weird how that happens, but in a different life, I was definitely a fellow officer.
Yeah, it's a serious commitment, and it kind of sets you down this whole other path. It's like a 10-year, it's like 4 years at the academy and like 6 years afterwards, I think, if you're a pilot, right? Yeah. So it's like, by the time you're done with that, you're just 10 years in the future, right? It's sort of like, it's a whole other life, but everything worked out. So
yeah, and I love how it creates national identity. I'll talk to a lot of Israeli founders, and all of them have to serve for a couple of years, I think, in the military there. Yeah, it's like automatic, totally. And it creates this like automatic national identity. I think everybody's gone through this common experience, but obviously not everybody goes to the military and gets the benefit of that anymore in the U.S.
Yeah, a lot of camaraderie, to say the least.
Yeah. So walk us through, okay, so you go into the military, you do your 10 years, it sounds like, as an officer, kind of climb the ranks a bit. And then you're coming out, do you go directly into the MBA program? What was that transition like?
Yeah, so I was active duty for about 4 years, actually, and then jumped over to basically the reserves, and would go sort of back and forth and kind of take leaves of absence when I was at PwC and even into grad school and even into Meta. And so kind of stayed in the reserves, a sort of parallel path that the whole time. So basically came back and actually joined before undergrad. So came back and did my undergrad up at Washington State at the time, and then headed to LA for Pricewaterhouse, and then back up to the Bay for
You went to Wazoo?
I did.
I don't know how I didn't know that. So I'm from Seattle and went to UW, so don't hold that against me, but
No, not at all. It's a great
So
memory
funny.
for sure. Apple
Yeah,
Cup.
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for the listeners who don't know, our two colleges are like fierce rivals. I guess that would be like equivalent to like probably Berkeley and Stanford, or UCLA and USC maybe, or
Exactly.
Oregon State, like those kind of like just hardcore.
Yeah. Wait all year long for a single game, right?
The Apple Cup. Yeah, that's amazing. It's cool. So you did the reserve thing. Did you make it to the retirement? Is it like 20 years or something like that?
I actually got out about the time kind of founding Atmosfy and stuff. It's it's a serious commitment even in the reserves, and often involves can be 3 to 4 months a year. That you're sort of gone and training and deployments. And at that point, we had raised venture capital, and so it kind of became something that just wasn't in a position to be able to really give it. It's sort of full due, and you're holding up the slot for another captain, right? That that wants to come in there and kind of give it all he's got or she's got. And so for that reason, decided probably time to kind of take a break from that. So would have loved to continue parallel pathing it, but startup is can be a little bit of work. So
yeah, just a tiny bit. So let's talk about kind of the inception of Atmosfy, and like, were you kind of, what was the kind of spark there? Was that in the MBA program or after? Yeah, how'd that go down?
It was a few different things. I kind of my eclectic background during undergrad at Wazoo, actually bartended for a couple of years, which is just
great profession in college. Yeah, the best.
Yeah.
I waited tables in college too. It was awesome way to make money.
Yeah, it's a great way to make money. A lot of lessons learned there, hospitality. But it definitely stuck with me that like discovery as a platform, as kind of a vertical, is pretty downward biased. It's kind of stacked against restaurants and really locations in general, because consumer psychology dictates like you have a good experience, you're just not overly incentivized, despite a myriad of signs, right? Leave us a review on Yelp, and
leave us a 5-star review on Yelp.
Totally, right? And so when most people don't do it, and then people have a bad experience, and you're sort of like disproportionately incentivized.
There's a negativity bias to reviews, right? Because like usually 100%. There's probably, I don't know what the probability, but you're many more times likely to leave a negative review if you have a bad experience than if you have a positive experience.
Totally. And then that's amplified by the fact of like our selection bias reading the reviews, that you're, sort of subconsciously like, where's the dirt? And you're just more likely to remember.
This one sounds too fluffy. This one sounds kind of fake. Did they really visit? Oh, there we go. There's the 2-star, 3-star.
There's the dirt that I'm like subconsciously looking, right? And so you sort of have more negativity being surfaced, and then more negativity being sort of remembered. And that always just kind of struck me as like, man, there's got to be a better way to sort of discover or to circumvent this or to reinvent that. And when I was at Meta and working a lot with, sort of like Instagram, I saw video as the medium to be able to kind of like disrupt that, to just build it differently in terms of, how people kind of think about discovery on social media. And what does that look like with a lot more utility in a city-based context, in a platform that's built for discovery. And so those two things, kind of stuck with me, seed planted when I was a little bit younger, and then it just felt like the right time to kind of start that. During the pandemic as well, maybe the linchpin was just like there was just so many small businesses hurting, right? With what was the whole thing, right? Indoor, outdoor dining, and just masks and everything, right? And it was people weren't sure what was open, and even Google and Yelp, it was tough to understand sort of what the situation was. And I thought, well, if we could kind of get some creators to band together and be able to kind of like create this quasi city feed at the time, that might be a mission that we could sort of rally people around to do, and it was something that really resonated with folks.
So cool. And so were you starting to kind of work on this in the MBA program or after, or?
This would have been after. So MBA program, and then a few years at Meta, and this would have been, sort of after Meta.
Right. So you're kind of surrounded by, the predominant visual social network that is Instagram. And you're thinking like, hey, there's got to be a better way to connect people who want to know what's going on at restaurants and places in the physical world with this new trend of like video-based content, short form video content. So walk us through kind of like what happened next. So you got this idea, and then what do you do?
Like I get people to post, right? And so, that's the, and we contacted creators and, folks that were food bloggers and folks that were travel bloggers, and got in, what was San Francisco at the time, people to, to really start posting around the notion of supporting local businesses, to be able to kind of like, hey, I had a good experience here. This place is open. It's still open. Come on down, check it out, support it. And so, that was a great sort of mission to rally creators around. And I think, it spread pretty quickly, sort of what we were doing. And yeah, Atmosfy was born.
It's amazing. And so did you have a technical co-founder right away? How did that founding team kind of dynamic work out?
Didn't have a technical co-founder in the beginning, really had, kind of a vision. I had, was reasonably technical from sort of working in the meta landscape and kind of had a vision of what I wanted to look like. And so, found some great engineers and, basically just started on kind of an MVP of the product and started building.
And then it really took off, right? I mean, what was exciting for me when I looked at it as an investor, this is probably 3 or 4 years ago now, is kind of the inherent virality of the platform, right? Is, I can now go peruse things and kind of share these videos, take these videos, share them. What have been some, lessons learned, I guess, in kind of the growth hacking of a consumer kind of marketplace? It's almost like a B2B2C marketplace. Or maybe we can actually rewind before that and just kind of tell the audience what Atmosfy is and what the vision and mission of it is.
Yeah, I mean, Atmosfy is a video-first discovery platform designed to help people discover, really dining, nightlife, travel, hotels, really anything under sort of travel. The product at its core is geolocated. So, 10,000 cities in the world, across 150 countries have their own feeds. There's utility built into the product to be able to filter by, cuisine or, dining or nightlife, and a social map that shows you where your friends have been. And so, there's, the way that we sort of think about the product in general is that, if TikTok on one side is very sort of entertainment, right? And that's that world of entertainment. And then you have traditional review platforms on the other side, a Yelp or a Google that's really more research based, right? So that's kind of like, I need to solve a problem now. The middle ground that we've really created, which is kind of this new, sort of vertical of discovery, right? Which is people sort of, happenstance wanting to understand what's happening in their city, not sure exactly what they're looking for, wanting to be inspired for new experiences, all of that. And so that's what the product sort of caters to through a video first lens.
It's amazing. Looking back over the, what year was the company founded? Okay, so kind of in the heart of COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're kind of staring at the abyss here. What are some things that, looking back over the last, 3, almost 4 years now, if you could tell other founders kind of about to set out on this journey, what kind of lessons learned would you take away from those first 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, lots and lots of learnings. I'm trying to think about, I think just getting any sort of a consumer platform started is really about, who are going to be your early adopters on the content production side, right? Because that's what, it's all chicken and egg. But if you don't have any content to sort of, watch and absorb, then obviously you're
kind of similar to what Airbnb did with, sending professional photographers out, right, getting really good looking videos and pictures of places to rent.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it's kind of like, look, what's in it for them? How are you going to communicate the value? How are you going to recruit folks, and how are you going to be able to deliver some value to be able to keep that, right? Sort of, I think production of content sort of day one is probably the main sort of glaring problem. I think consumption has to be a fast follow, because that's what sort of is the other side of the marketplace, right? It doesn't work very, very long with just sort of content production.
And that's kind of the magic of the platform, right? Is it's kind of a C2C platform where consumers create content, consumers consume content, but then the restaurants and, various places, hotels, whatever. And Renata and I were recently down at Stinson Beach, like looking at people's videos, like here on the shore of California, right? And so people are creating videos not just about restaurants anymore. It's about like, look at this tide and look at this like turtle and, look at this beach and look at the waves of the surf right now. And,
Yeah, we never really had to like formally launch new verticals. It kind of became people just were like, if I can upload where I eat.
For hashtag and stuff. And
yeah. I mean, it was kind of like, look, if I can upload where I eat, which was, all there was to do right during COVID, or, there's some experiences obviously too, but starting with dining, it's like, if I can upload where I eat, then, I can upload where I drink, And if I put where I drink, then it's where I stay. It's this awesome hotel room getaway.
Where
If
I
I can do
hike,
that, then it's
anywhere
just
I
hike,
go
right?
and
Yeah.
physical. Yeah.
Yeah, because, as you start memorializing experiences, that sort of passport stamp effect, as we kind of, term it internally, people want to add to that. People want to start memorializing more of these experiences that they can share with friends, that they can share with the community. And so to sort of naturally sort of grew from there, that people were kind of taking it upon themselves to add verticals.
Yeah. And how do you, like one investor question that would come up, and I think I had probably asked you this 3 or 4 years ago, and I forget your answer now, so I'll ask you now, which is, well, wait, couldn't just Instagram just add geolocation posts, or Twitter for that matter, or whoever? Like, what was your insight, and how do you create that moat around this geolocated experience?
Yeah, I think it's, from working there, I think it's an important distinction that's easy to sort of gloss over about what those platforms are really, really good at. I mean, they're the best in the world at entertainment, right? At keeping people swiping and scrolling and virality and everything, and giving TV a run for its money in terms of consumption, right? But they weren't built to be able to answer the question of where should I go in my city tonight for Italian food? Or I'm thinking about visiting a city this weekend. I want to be able to see, great experiences that are there and starting to bookmark them. And so, if you kind of like even take a step back and think about kind of the verticalization of social media, 10 plus years ago, you have a company that comes along and says, what's Facebook doing really well that should really be its own app? And of course, the answer was Instagram, was photos, right? And so that becomes, what was a vertical for Facebook that becomes its own platform. People still use Instagram and TikTok to discover places, right? But it's really difficult. It's cumbersome. It's not a platform that's built for hyperlocal discovery, and the feature set and the intention and the algorithm and the social proof and everything is a really, really robust feature set. And so I think if you're Instagram, your core mission is to continue, providing as much entertainment as possible, continue, to keep ad dollars up and to the right. But it's really difficult, I don't want to say impossible, but really difficult to build an app within an app for every vertical. And if you think about the different verticals that an Instagram or TikTok cater to, fashion, beauty, sports, right, humor, it becomes really difficult to just sort of carve off like, well, we're going to have an entire app with hyperlocal features here, and we're going to do it with sports, and we're going to do it with beauty, and we're going to do it with fashion. And so a lot of it is a choice that these large companies or, like an Instagram or a TikTok are just, that's not what they're solving for.
Right.
And I think that gives us an advantage to be able to create a product that is built for one thing and one thing only, to decide where to eat, drink, and stay. And the feature set is very, very different because the intention is different.
For any investors or angels listening, that was a 5 out of 5 score on the moat question. It was really good.
We'll take it.
Yeah, we'll take it. Put it in the deal memo. That was great. So let's talk about kind of the the raising kind of that first priced round. What was that process like? So now you've come out, you've written a bunch of safes, right, to a bunch of small investors, and now you're going in for that big check from the A round investor.
Yeah, so you're going out and doing the fundraising thing, and it's been a tough last 3 or 4 years with that.
Yeah.
It's been a couple of sort of
better
better moments.
Close? Was it late 22, mid 22, somewhere in there?
We closed that December of 22.
Yeah, wow, yeah. Exactly. So right at the kind of tail end as stuff was starting to kind of go downhill. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And we got connected with Redpoint, and they've been fantastic and incredibly supportive. And so, yeah, you're just navigating that fundraising process. I think you're articulating the vision, showcasing the traction, being able to really talk about sort of the mission and the vision of what you're trying to create, and good old fundraising, right? So,
yeah. And you've also had a lot of success getting some pretty notable celebrities to do some events or support you guys in various ways. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we got connected with PTC, which is, Kygo's fund, and so it's terrific getting a chance to work with them, and they've been gracious about intros as well. And so I think, that was something from a brand perspective that we just knew we could benefit a lot from. We are an experience-based product. And so the idea of being able to provide these world-class experiences as giveaways in the product, which is a great way for us to sort of leverage the celebrities brand, right? To be able to give value back to them. So we've done, a couple of giveaways with, with Kygo's team to VIP tickets to, to go out and, to go to Aspen and, wherever he's playing. And so those were great opportunities for us to say, hey, let's get back to our community. Let's give this world-class experience. Let's, tie it to, people inviting people, right, to be able to, to generate some great virality and some great word of mouth. And then, I think that's appealing for celebrities to be able to, I think, they want to be able to invest in stuff that they can meaningfully influence, right, in terms of leveraging their brand. And we found a great synergy of world-class experiences as value for our community to do that.
Yeah, I love that. So thinking back, I know you guys recently started to monetize, and we won't give away any of the metrics obviously on the podcast, but when you think back of that kind of 3 or 4 year journey, did you monetize too late, too early, or just the right time? And how do founders, especially consumer oriented technology founders, know when it's the right time to monetize?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an evolving question, certainly. I don't know that there's a definitive right answer. Obviously, time will tell, but I think it is important to have confidence in, in where you're at from a product market fit perspective. There's an inevitable trade-off on the roadmap, product features, operations. Startups are all about sort of limited resources, right? And so when you're kind of diving into monetization, there's a lot of things that kind of have to take a back burner. And so I think if you're, from a founder, and this is, product market fit can't be defined, right? It's really, and so I think it comes down to kind of the founder sort of gut check on like, where are you at in that product market fit journey? And are you prepared, to be able to take a meaningful hit to purely the consumption of the product to build out, an entirely different channel of monetization? And how do you sort of feel about that? And I think that just kind of comes down to a choice and sort of a gut feeling. Metrics can certainly inform that, right? But yeah, I think it has to be like a very strategic decision for sure.
Right. So thinking kind of forward now, like, looking at the long-term vision for Atmosfy, 5 or 10 years out, what do you guys hope to accomplish? What's that long-term vision?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can really, we've always sort of had our eyes on just being the what's happening in my city app, right? I think as we have, continued to see depth of markets, we made a choice very early on to kind of be a global product around the world and to launch.
And we've used it around the world. Literally, we'll be in Greece, on a boat somewhere, or Bali, or just anywhere, and Atmosfy's there along with us, helping us find places and see places. So it's pretty cool.
Love to hear it. It was sort of a keystone strategic decision for us that I think was a little counterintuitive at the time. That was like, pick one sort of city and, sort of prove it out and, go from there. And we kind of did the opposite, which was, sort of going and building a global creator network and kind of launching around the world. So we have different
kind
cities.
Of the general advice that you hear from folks, right? When you're going to roll out a geographic-based consumer app, that's how Facebook did it by campus, right? Not sure how Instagram rolled out. Don't know the history there, but that's the general advice. Go nail a city and then kind of move on.
Yeah, I think so, right? I think it's like, the traditional sort of, if you're a geolocated product, then get those two sides of the marketplace, shrink the marketplace, right, to a single city and control supply and demand in a single city and prove that out and go to another city. And we just felt that there was an opportunity with sort of a global network of creators to kind of be able to create a product that allowed people to take it with them when they traveled, to encourage a cross-pollination of content, to build a global creator network that could sort of come together and rally around this vision. And so for a lot of reasons, it was the right decision for us. And so, as we've had markets that are super dense and some of our bigger markets.
Yeah. So thinking about, you've had a lot of really interesting leadership roles, including, being an officer in the Air Force and a bunch of other corporate gigs. You've also gotten the MBA from Berkeley, and they do a lot of leadership training there. How's your kind of philosophy on leadership shifted over the years, and especially as you've become a founder and you're a few years into that journey?
Leadership is interesting. It's I've been fortunate to have some terrific leaders. You obviously end up coming by sort of working for leaders that you're not huge fans of, and everything in between, I think, is a function of the military and sort of corporate America and tech. And so you kind of build your own sort of style of leadership. And I think it's, in some sense, it's very kind of individual in terms of leaders that were good leaders for kind of their own reasons. And so it's kind of like it when you see it. And I feel like a little bit. I think, like in terms of lessons learned.
That's what I tell my LPs, how do you select founders? It's like I got a long list of like questions I ask myself, but I kind of know it when I see it,
Yeah, totally. It's because it's a lot of stuff coalescing. I mean, I think like hard things is like, clarity of vision. People need to feel like the ship is being driven by someone that knows, is passionate about it, believes in it, knows where, even if they don't know everything, where they want to take it and where they envision that. So I think that's non-negotiable. Yeah. Building trust among folks is a non-negotiable. Taking feedback upwards from the team in terms of, there's a million different ways the product can go. And there are certainly spirited voices in the room about, what we should build next, or, how we should think about changes here and changes there. And I think, it's your job to be able to, as the sort of leader, to coalesce that stuff, to make the best information you have, to make sure people feel valued, right, for their opinion, because you sort of want dissenting opinions and challenges to be able to make those good decisions. So I think there's some stuff that's non-negotiable, always a work in progress, though, right?
Right. Well, let's switch to a rapid fire. What was your favorite project at Meta?
It's a great question. We worked a lot with, sort of implementation standards and, sort of thinking about consumer safety on the product. A lot of that was some, could be very difficult work in terms of challenging content and, whether it be sort of graphic violence or something on the hate speech side. So, those were challenging projects, but it was rewarding to see, the reduction of those things on those platforms as a function of teams working hard to make the platform safer. And so I think the opportunity to kind of see the impact that the team was having, because obviously we're sort of tracking and seeing reductions in these types of content. So getting a chance to work through some of those really challenging projects around, how do we think about, reducing this type of content through algorithmic training, through operations and the like, were great challenges.
Yeah. What's one key lesson from your time in the Air Force?
That's a good question. I think just probably, being like, how do I put this? Like, I think being able to take information and make the best decision you can in a way that gives people confidence that, like, look, we don't know if this is necessarily the perfect decision. What we do know is we know X, Y, and Z, and we're going to put this together, commit to a path, and sort of get on board with that.
But they have a mnemonic for that. There's like an acronym.
There's
like
a bunch.
Yeah. It's like acquire, assess, decide, act, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that is is sort of having muscle memory about decisions, right? To be able to say, look, we've got limited time to make this decision, and these are the things we know, and we're gonna, everyone's gonna get a chance to put in their input, and then we're gonna, someone is going to make that decision, and we're gonna move forward with it. Wow. I think that was great muscle memory for startup land, which is all that, right?
It's all that all the time. Yeah,
all that all the time. Like, we don't have all the information, we don't know if this is the right, but this is what we know, and this is what we're gonna do in limited time. So
I love that. Yeah, that's very, I remember working at Amazon. It was very much like that, because Amazon culture is very informed by military culture. Jeff Bezos hired a lot of former officers as execs. And so like AWS, where I was like, when I was there, it felt very militaristic. It's like, just like that. Like let's make a decision, speak up if you have a competing
now
viewpoint.
Is the time.
Now's the time, or we're going to execute,
Yep.
Very cool. What was the most challenging part of founding Atmosfy?
The most challenging part of founding Atmosfy, it's been, the ecosystem has evolved quite a bit since sort of founding this. I mean, you think about like how far we kind of take it for granted now because TikTok is so ubiquitous, but there was a time that people were like, what's this TikTok thing? And, is video, this is sort of the video revolution, right? And I think, there was a point in time when talking about the product was like convincing people that people want to watch videos of food, which seems totally ridiculous now, right? It's like everybody knows that because it's all over TikTok, because we know that engaging content is engaging, but there was a point in time when, a video versus kind of like a written review, like, are people going to really enjoy the video? Is it going to inform that they go there? And that has obviously we're sort of past that now, and now questions are kind of more around how are we going to take video, to kind of the next level. So I guess it feels like a lot's happened in the in not just the consumer landscape, but specifically with video during the duration of the startup, that is like, we're just pitching and answering different questions now, vastly different questions now than we were just 3 or 4 years ago, which is interesting. And that's
thinking about timing is such an important thing in startups and investing generally. Thinking back to the timing of Atmosfy, was it the right time? Was it a little earlier, or was it a little late? Like, how do you think about timing and what you got right there?
Yeah, I mean, time will tell. I mean, look, founding that during the pandemic, like little counterintuitive,
kind of ballsy, right? Yeah,
little counterintuitive, kind of like trying to sell a travel app in prison, right? It's just like, like I don't know if this is the right time to be doing this, right? And so, but I saw an opportunity to, that I thought that we could really rally some great creators around these small businesses that were hurting, and this is an opportunity to be able to give back. And so, I think, I mean, obviously history will judge, right? But I think it was a good time to be able to launch that for that reason. It's kind of like when everybody's looking one way, it's a great opportunity to kind of just be that outlier. Yeah. And so I'm glad that we started when we did. It's certainly been the startup environment's been challenging for everybody for the last 4 or 5 years. So that,
especially the last couple.
Totally, and so that's been, things certainly could have been easier in that department, but yeah, I mean, I feel grateful that we've gotten to be where we are and feel like we've gotten some great breaks with timing. So all in all, so far so good.
Yeah, love that. What's a book that has greatly influenced your leadership style?
Yeah, great question. Shoe Dog is a great one with Phil Knight. I think about how, thinking about inspiring people and kind of building Nike. That's a great one. I sort of, there's a few books that come to mind, Unbroken, in terms of kind of the resilience, that whole story. Just absolutely incredible.
That the POW and more in Japan?
Louis Zamperini. Yeah.
So good. I read the book, and the movie does not do it justice. The movie's pretty good too, but the book is just incredible.
Phenomenal. Yeah. And there's so much, there's so many great leadership lessons there. Walter Isaacson has done some great, obviously like Jobs and those kinds of like huge biographies.
Yeah, the Musk book was amazing too. Yeah,
the Musk book was amazing, and I think that there's some great leadership lessons around. You look at these.
Although apparently, if you like Elon Musk now, you're kind of a right winger.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's funny.
but even like with Jobs, right? He's just so revered. It's like, you leave that book rather conflicted about how you feel about it, right? Like in terms of like, because he does such a great job of kind of like this unvarnished canvas of people. And I think those are good leadership lessons, because you're kind of like, here's the parts I kind of liked about him. Here's the parts I kind of didn't. And what kind of leader do I want to be? How would I want to be remembered in sort of that sense? Yeah. And so I think biographies
can you be a nice guy and have a huge impact? What do you think?
I mean, I think you can totally. I think it's challenging.
Think of like some of the most enduring, incredible entrepreneurs, Bezos, you have Bill Gates, Jobs, Musk. All those they're lunatics, right? They were all kind of like lunatics in their kind of own way.
Yeah, it's almost like it requires a certain level of like being eccentric in terms of like almost
Larry like Page and Sergey Brin, pretty nice guys. They're pretty nice. I mean, they're very exacting, and the Google guys are pretty nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can. I think it can totally be done. I think it is.
Zuck's kind of crazy, right?
I haven't had a chance to meet him personally, so I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't.
I don't know.
I wouldn't know, but I think it is easy to, and perhaps somewhat necessary to kind of like.
I mean, like crazy in a visionary entrepreneur, right? Like break down walls kind of way, not like crazy, like he's like out there crazy and he needs to be institutionalized.
Well, yeah, I think in the sense of like relentless focus, right?
Relentless,
sort of,
that's the word.
It's just
super high standards for everybody around you. Fire people on the way down the elevator, kind of thing.
And those kinds of traits do seem to kind of run a little bit with with people that are kind of making a massive impact in the world. That like there probably are some trade-offs, I would imagine.
Have you had to fire anybody as a founder, CEO yet?
We've certainly had people that, like unfortunately weren't a good fit. And, but I think, especially at a seed stage company, I think it's fairly apparent to, most people on the team and, sort of the person that it's not a good fit for, that it's not a good fit. So
Yeah.
I don't really think like, certainly not
I
doing
have a
mass
funny
layoffs.
story for you in the podcast for anybody hasn't heard this one. It was 2012. I'm working at a startup. I'm running demand gen. I won't name the startup. You can probably figure it out if you do some research. But my dad dies, and I'm like, I can't get out of bed.
no.
Right? I love my dad. Right? It's like just 12 years ago, and I finally muster up the strength. He dies on like a Monday or Tuesday night, and I finally get into the office like Friday. Like, this is a startup, right? They're relying on me. I'm running demand gen, right? And and I missed a couple meetings. My dad just died. Like, I emailed in, I called in, whatever. And then Tuesday, the guy lets me go. The next Tuesday,
Oh, no.
literally like a week after my dad.
Jeez.
I know.
Man.
I was like, "Ooh, boy," like that's some
take no prisoners
kind of shit there. So yeah, I've been fired. Apparently, I wasn't that good at demand gen, but maybe I'm a better investor.
I think so.
Oh man, what's your favorite experience or aha moment or memory of using Atmosfy? Maybe at a city or a place or on a trip or something.
I was actually at an airport and saw someone using it, like for the first time that you didn't know. And I remember that was just such a cool feeling.
Cool. You just glance over and somebody's just using it and swiping through things and.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow.
And it's just kind of like just a very surreal moment that, because, you show it to your friends, you show it to your family, anybody that will listen,
won't
right?
tell your baby's ugly, right? They're like, oh yeah, it's
well,
great.
Anybody that's,
congratulations.
yeah, anybody in earshot that'll listen, right? You're like, but I think the first time you see someone that's using it is sort of like, man, like the person just like found it and they think it's a good idea to be using it. I think those are
Did you talk
cool.
To them?
I didn't, no.
Okay. Well, you just kind of like, you're like, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's like someone I didn't have to tell, right? They just like found the app, and in the early days, action like that is, feels awesome.
So cool. What's the next big feature for Atmosfy that you're excited about?
Yeah, messaging is coming here in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We're super excited about that. Enabling creators to be able to communicate directly on the platform and be able to ask folks about recommendations. There's a lot of great stuff coming. We're doing a lot with gamification and, some great badges and helping to be able to make, sort of memorializing things even more fun. Yeah, we've got a terrific roadmap. It's going to hit here pretty quick. I won't spoil all surprises.
Yeah, that's great.
But it's going to be a whirlwind. It'll be great.
Last question, given, startups can be super stressful, how do you maintain balance? Is there such a thing as balance? And how do you kind of keep your head about all this craziness?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't really know that there's such a thing as balance, especially in the early days. I think it's, whatever for sort of mental health, which I think is different for a lot of people. I think diligence and structure to that process for me, fitness has always been huge, meditation, journaling, but I think you really have to be disciplined to sort of like carve out that time. It's very easy to like wake up and be like, I want to jump right into it. I've got so much stuff that I could be doing, and an hour at the gym or 30 minutes of, meditation and journaling feels like I don't have time to do that. And I think, it's the one thing you sort of don't have time to not do. Because if you think about the sort of quality of decisions, right, it comes down to like, moving the needles. That's a long road and a lot of tiny decisions. There's keystone decisions that you make. And like, if you were going to go play a game of chess, every single day, right, you'd want to like, well, I want to be in good mental sort of condition to do that. And so I think you've just, maybe it's painting for some people, maybe it's long walks, whatever it is. But I think being true and being disciplined about it and being like, this is going to be a non-negotiable because it's going to be a very long, stressful journey. And if I start waffling on that stuff, then I'm no good to anybody.
Right. Well, this has been an awesome conversation. Where can folks find out more about you and Atmosfy?
Atmosfy.io. You can check us out on the App Store and Google Play. We're out there in the world. Go support your local community through video.
Thank you so much for coming on. This is great.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Michael.